Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while to say the least. It's February 8th, and yeah, it's been a while, and I need to go back to documenting. I think I don't I can't care too much about what people the people who are watching about how they're gonna think about me because I gotta remind myself this is for my future self, and I think in like 10 years for myself to look back and for my peers, my family, my friends, and people I want to inspire. So who really cares if it doesn't look the best or the most professional, right? So yeah, going back to it, and I guess to kind of go over what's been happening. A lot. I've just been focused on college applications, and I'm finally done. I never want to experience this again. I also think it's my own fault. It wasn't. I mean, a lot of it was just my fault. I dragged it on too much. I got too stressed, and I didn't think of it as thoroughly as I needed to. I guess it's the first time where like the decision actually matters, and you're kind of stuck with it, right? But yeah, I applied to Stanford. And I really tried hard to get in, but I didn't get in, and I think maybe that was the right thing. I think I was, I don't know. I feel in the sense of the financial, I didn't apply for financial aid, so I think if I didn't, that would have put too much of pressure on my own family, which doesn't sit right. Maybe it's probably worth, at least according to what people say, the college. But I think if it affects my my siblings who are also gonna go to college, then I wouldn't really be happy with that, and I might have left or something along those lines. Anyway, I probably would have dropped out. So yeah, I don't know. But outside of that, I applied to others, and I'm really hoping I can get somewhere with really good scholarship. I always thought of not going to college, but I also think I want to visit America, and there's a lot of opportunities. Everyone speaks English there, and the economy seems to be doing well. And yeah, all of my peers who are entrepreneurs are in America, so I'll give it a shot. And yeah, and I'm thinking of majoring. So I majored either artificial intelligence or physics or computer science or like business and tech along those kinds of majors. I'm really thinking physics and maybe dual majoring it with economics or biology might be a good idea. I've been thinking a lot recently. I changed my podcast format to sort of like Founders Podcast or How to Take Over the World. Sort of like me, just it's a monologue podcast where I discuss in depth about this one person, sort of like a story of their life, like a mini biography, but really focusing on specific things they say at specific points of their time, which I found useful, right? I think that's what I should emphasize what I found useful at this current moment, and I want to keep it at the pace of once a week, um, or maybe twice a week if I want to. But once a week is the standard or is the baseline, and it's not just this, but it's sometimes gonna be interviews. But I want to change the number to just the interviews I want to have. I just want to be billionaires or people who are like really really far off the field, and it's not the way I like hate it, but it's just I think I need to focus on listening from the highest level sources I can, um, because I think I want to remind myself to dream much bigger, as big as possible. I think I'm making an episode of Masayoshi Son, and I'm constantly reminded that I should that okay, not constantly reminded, but when I listen to Masa, I'm always reminded that it's the my mom's cleaning the house, but that the thing is when I was going over his biography, whenever his dreams were so bold. I think he asked for 20 million yen when he was 22 years old, and he was not even a Korean. I mean, he was not even Japanese. He was an ethnic Korean, which didn't really look that good. And also, this is back in like 1980s, 1970s. It was, I guess the economy was doing good, but there wasn't money flowing around, and there was no understanding of the entrepreneurship and us giving money to entrepreneurs. This is Japan, right? So it's just and all the banks said no to him, but one of the last banks, and I mean one of the last banks that were available. He contacted them, and when he contacted them, the banker, despite being like this kid doesn't make sense, like he's asking for so much money for having no necessary for not it didn't make sense logically. Why would you even dare ask this? Like you're just a kid. But the boldness to even send something like that made him curious, and they had a conversation, and Masa was able to close him. Um, and that all started just because of that curiosity of the banker. Just like, wow. And I think that I'm thinking maybe it's actually easier, or not easier, but it's not that hard. Like it's not like going from 100 million to a billion is 10 times harder, or from 100 million to 10 billion or 100 billion is not that far. And also, I think it helps because I, I, I think from a young age I've always wanted to do something big, and I think we have a lot more time. Like I think if things work out, I might live 150 years or 200 years, and I I don't know. I think I would not be happy if I just made a little bit of money and I just did what I want. And that was it. I think if I built something to a large scale that is moving humanity forward in some aspect, solving a lot of issues, right? And actually solving problems that actually people have, right? Like I think I realized there was a startup I was working on, and all of them were not really based on any customer that I personally felt the problem of, or at least actually surprising. The one thing that actually made money, which was a AI writing assistant email, so something for helping you respond for professionals using small commands. That was actually something I wanted because it took me a long time to respond to emails in a professional manner. So I think that brings back to having people having actual problems to solve. Nevermore, big problems are nice. Like I wonder, like why can't I dream big like Masa did? Why can't I dream of $100 billion fund or something along those lines for my own life? Why can't I dream of leading the technology wave and they're just growing the company? Like the wealth of Masa is absurd because I'm in Korea and I see all these buildings, I see everyone having cars, and the monopoly that Samsung and these Jebels have over the Korean society, and even the CEOs of the biggest conglomerates in Korea, I think it was Jay Young or something. He's the CEO of Samsung. Masa is still three times his wealth. He's Masa is the richest ethnic Korean, and he did that while in Japan. And yeah, I'm like, wow. I think that innovativeness can beat old bureaucracies and I guess corruption that I could have seen. And when I worked for some people, they told me, and even in the podcast, um, and former boss of mine, and there is some significant issues within the Korean just business ecosystem. And then yeah, going back, so like, why don't I dream bigger? Why can't I? What's actually stopping me? I mean, there's a lot of things. Like, I'm thinking of a lot of different. I've been recently putting an idea bank, inspired off of Masa. When he since I think he was 14, he started having just ideas banks, and I started putting a lot of ideas, and ones that I wouldn't have even thought of because I think I sort of gave up on like the big ones, like like space mining or whatever, because I'm like, oh, I'm not smart enough. I don't have the endurance. I'm not resilient enough. But I think I like to take the approach of Alex. There are definitely natural inclinations, right? I definitely think I'm better than 99% of people at math. Physics, I'm not sure. I don't have enough big sample size, but at least from just not trying at all, that also these are just your past. In the sense that in the past you were this good at physics, but you didn't really try. And if you didn't really try, how can you really know? And also, how can you be sure that this sort of structure of how my there are very different education systems. How I felt in the Korean education system, how I felt in this current American education system, a very specific type as that is really equivalent to what I'm actually curious and good at. And are my experiences of coding for startup actually meaning that I am not a good coder? Because I think I'm an okay coder, but I didn't enjoy it. But also the software I worked most on was a intelligence platform that was sort of analyzing social medias of companies for market research for other companies, but that was purely from a monetary standpoint. But I didn't really feel like I was solving anything, or I wasn't helping like the world. I was just part of the, I guess, not the I guess not the bureaucracy, but just the corporate world, just doing corporate things with other corporate people, and that's it. But not really ending up with anything, or I can't really see actually. Maybe I could say it helps a little bit in this aspect, but it's not really clear to me. And I'm thinking there's a lot, and some ideas that I'm thinking is a friend of mine's friend, his father passed out because he was working in his family business, and his father was there alone at the night shift or whatever, cleaning the warehouse for the day. It was like a vape store, and he fell, and because no one was there, he just died. And I wonder how many of those accidents there are. Which there's so many accidents like that, which could have been so reversible, right? So why don't you just? I mean, I searched up and there are like trackers you put on people, but why isn't it just a universal thing? Because if you say, hey, this person is slowly dying, you can send the required assistant over, and that could have been really helpful. Um, yeah, I wonder why. Why can't we have like just even the setting of our watches, um, so that it can check our blood pressure, and if it goes out suddenly or if it's very slow, it alarms us, right? There was certain things would have to be, or it would call the emergency services. Um, there's some other ideas I've been also thinking of, but those are very small ones. The bigger ones are just like curing cancer. This is what Larry Ellison recently said in the Stargate project, the $500 billion AI project that was supposed, although I'm not sure if it's going on. That actually got me into Masa Yoshi's on as well. But the Stargate program, Larry Ellison was saying what AI will allow, especially advanced AI, will allow is it will allow for vaccines and treatments to cancer, to all kinds of diseases, to be modified specifically based on information about you. And to my extent, I'm not really sure about cancer, but I heard cancer. So cancer is kind of like just saying it's disease. There's a lot of different types of them, and you have to sort of test on that own person's blood sample to find different things and different treatments, and eventually one might work, and you would apply that on the person. I think chemotherapy. I'm not exactly sure how it exactly works, but anyway, AI can help, and it can help creating structures, and I'm wondering how AI could also be applied to physics, right? Like, there's a lot of things I'm trying to learn, so that's why I have more biographies. I'm gonna make one on Albert Einstein soon, but Albert Einstein, to my understanding, he connected two concepts, math and physics, some things he noticed, and just created, the theory of relativity he introduced, or at least if he's one of the people responsible for the creation of the atomic bomb, or the physics of the atomic bomb, one of the first people who introduced it, and that was possible, and all these different things, right? Um, and that was due to my best understanding, just from thinking, right? It's not from observing and experiments as much. It's just from mathematics and logical reasoning. But why couldn't AI do that? And evermore, why couldn't it analyze many other experiences, many other it could think of so many different ways to think of one issue, think of one concept, and it could try to connect it to 10,000 different concepts, all kinds of ways that we wouldn't have a lifetime to even think about. And maybe it could come up with things that we just couldn't have, right? Um, and if it's in robotics and engineering, it could replace a lot of, the workers around the world, which is also sad because a lot of those people don't really do well. Like, I'm right next to actually my window right now. There's every day I wake up and I see a grandma, rolling, like, I think like from here to, like, I guess from the floor up until here, amount of trash on her back, on a, not a stroller, but with some kind of contraption with wheels, and and she takes it, and she takes the trash. Uh, I think like a garbage recycling facility or something along those lines. Anyway, they use those trashes and they pay her like $1 for a day, which makes her living. And then if I take her job with robotics, I don't really feel that good. And there's cleaning ladies in our school, so it doesn't feel the best to do it. But also, maybe introduce universal basic income. Maybe it'll increase the financial wealth of the entire world. So maybe we can give a bit of those off for people who just, I don't know, who don't really have, we're not young, we're quite old, who can't really learn new things as much. Or maybe that's the wrong framework. Maybe the old people still can. Maybe that belief of that, hey, old people can't learn is what is limiting a lot of people. Um, and teachers as well. I'm wondering, I feel like I could replace, there's not a lot of teachers I've felt in my life who've actually been teachers. A lot of them are just speaking robots. And if I say it in that sense, it really clarifies that, hey, because if I really think about what a lot of teachers do is they just have a textbook and they just read it and they just show you tests and quizzes. And they make funny jokes maybe and they talk to you about their life. See, the really great teachers, they might have, they curate it for that person, you could say, or they have that human element and they actually care. And that care and support they have for individual students is very important. And or you could argue, and it is definitely is, right? So if you're not that kind of teacher, I don't think you really should be a teacher. I don't think it helps society in any way, and I think a robot could do the same. Although it wouldn't be the same, right? It'd be kind of off, but I think we could figure out some kind of way, maybe like an online tutor of sorts. But it would definitely be something where I would probably have AI avatar of sorts talking like this, sort of to give a one-to-one tutor relationship, which I heard is the most effective for learning, or maybe a two-to-one. Um, and I felt that in my own life, like in third grade when I did math, there was a lady. She was a teacher at a Hagwon, and she actually believed in me. So she allowed me to skip multiple grades, which I really wanted to, but in school they didn't allow me. It was so boring. I hated math all my life because it was so slow. I just already did it. Like I don't know. Like why am I doing things that I don't even have to think about? Like it's just simple. And most my peers did not, so I think that's why I got bullied a lot. But um, what was it? But when she believed in me, that belief allowed me to accelerate until ninth grade, and I haven't felt that kind of belief in a long while. And whenever I've had even like a sparkle of belief, then things actually start happening, and I actually also had self confidence. I'm wondering, the thing is the most important to have self confidence, but I'm not sure if there's any pure self confidence. Someone must have believed you at some point, perhaps, for you to go on where you are. Like Napoleon had I think it was Napoleon. I might be wrong, but yeah, How to Take Over the World says there's a very common pattern of a lot of the great conquerors. They had a really caring and loving mother. I have it, so I'm thankful. If that builds your self confidence. Masa, his father since a young age, would always tell him that you're a genius, that you're the smartest kid in the world, and that sort of carried on. Alex Ramosi, who I just listened to, who actually reminded me to start posting again. He also his girlfriend Layla believed in him at his hardest point when he failed, and he even told him that you can leave if you want. It would make sense. If I were you, I would as well. I think that's what he said, and she said even if I have to live under the bridge, I would still be with you. And I believe you, and she believed in him like no one else could. And that sort of belief, there's people around you, and that's I guess the people I want to surround myself with as well. That's also something I've recently been thinking about. I think I've been surrounding myself because of the college apps or just in school, interacting too much with people who just don't believe in me. It's not like they're supposed to. Like I don't care if you believe or you don't. It's not like it's a moral duty for you to, right? But I think it's my own moral duty for myself to surround myself with people who believe in me, and not just in like they should also critique me and give me honest feedback. But whenever they give me feedback, they are people who actually want me and who believe I can do great things, who believe I can achieve great things. Because sometimes life doesn't always happen that way. But and I'm glad I have a friend who does. So yeah, I think a lot of the yeah. Going back, it's really weird doing this. I haven't done this in a while. It's so weird. so weird going on monologues because I know that this is gonna be seen like 20 years from now on, and all some of my friends might be watching this, and I don't know, they might be just laughing. I bet my friend wouldn't be. If you're my friend, and you're watching this until this much. I don't know why, but please tell me you did because I am curious how many people are actually watching this. Because the last one, 100 people watched it, and I'm like, man, I don't like that. 100 people like that. That's an entire auditorium. I'm literally saying this non-prepared speech whatsoever just to a screen. It just sounds so off. But one thing I know is I think I am getting better at speaking monologue because I'm doing the personal podcast and doing this and other things I do, and it's just all practice. And I guess I have to remind myself everything I do. It's also the person I'm becoming. I'm not sure the odds of the things I'm working on will succeed, but also because I guess the doubt gets to me sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like I have a confidence that everything will sort of work out these days because um how do I say? I think reading biographies, I just feel like I am those people. Like I just feel like I am exactly them in a way. Like I've experienced that life, even though I haven't. And I am that person, even if I haven't. And I know they've gone through so much hard things, and I can do it. And the other thing is, I think I've been fortunate. A lot of the listeners, right, who are listening to this, have been fortunate to live lives that are so much better than anyone could have basically imagined. Most people in the history of the world could have imagined. The fact I have a computer and can do this, I can pursue passions. That let alone is crazy. The idea of a passion didn't even really exist. The idea of going up, I guess, the social hierarchy, building wealth is such a hard thing to do. Like even like 100 years ago, it was to the privileged few in maybe America, and usually you had to come from an aristocratic family or a wealthy family, mercantile family. And if you weren't, you had no chance whatsoever, unless you were just extremely tough and also extremely lucky. The chances were I would have been born. I was born 400, 300 years ago. I would have been, one of those nomadic barbarians. Not barbarian. I guess the Chinese would call us barbarians, but the people in the like the Mongols, sort of, I would be similar to them, shooting bows, nomadic lifestyle, massacring people, conquering people, that stuff. And now I don't need to do that. I don't need to be an evil person. I guess the conquering, not the conquering part of, I think, a lot of people can be transferred for something that's good and no murder, and for societal good. The competitiveness can be used for societal good. And just like my parents can live long, like most parents would not often live long, and like even the mother Marco, my podcast name on Marco Polo, the actual Marco Polo, like I think he couldn't meet his family for 13 years or something along those lines because it was just so far to go from China to Europe, and that's just crazy, and the chance of you dying is so high. So I don't have to deal with that. I can just fly to Singapore. I can fly to. I want to go to Oman for some reason, but I can fly to Oman. I can fly to Cyprus. I can fly to Milan. I can fly to Colombia or something. I don't know why, but I could. But all those things I can, and it's like, man. And people live their lives going through much harder things than I could really imagine. I can't imagine just being a warrior every day and just like the chances of you dying are so high, and if you get infected it's gonna be so hard. And when you have headaches, there's no medicine, there's no painkiller if you have really bad headaches. Like I get really bad headaches, but you don't have anything for that. And you know you are, how do you say it, the suffering, I think, is so much more higher in the past. Competition so much higher. There were so much massacre, so much mass revolution, so much chances of you getting tortured or raped, or so many horrible things that could have happened, and now it's largely been diminished, and most people don't really experience it, or at least people in developed society, or I guess like first world countries. And the fact other people went through so much hard things and continue to do so, And there are people who went through, who had far worse economic, even mental backgrounds than me, were able to succeed. Inspires me so much. It's like if I can do that, there's no way I can. I think if people suffered enough, I think I can. And a lot of these people, it's not the intellect necessarily, it's their ability to go back from failure. There is a part of the intelligence, which is something you always doubt yourself. Am I smart enough? But I'm not really sure. Is like what what they mean by intelligence. It's your decision making, and for decision making, can I think enough to think somewhat strategically? And if I want to further my strategic, I can maybe write them down. I can hire advisors to help me help certain parts. I can have mentors of mine to help clear up certain parts. I can have principles that come up with long hours of thinking that is very meticulously done. I can sort of like what Charlie has, I guess, is just mental models of solving things. I can I can do a lot of things like that. I know that'll definitely help me. And I think that'll be enough to make me in the top 1% if I really try hard on making sure I think logically. And on the other side, I guess the quick thinkingness, the ability, I think that would help if I'm just, no, I haven't even read that much biographies, but if I just read a couple, I think I can think of basic ways of answering certain problems I have. And it's like, I got, I guess, and then maybe I have to also listen to the fact that failing faster is more important than like succeeding a couple times, because in the sense that if you fail you can learn fast, but if you just don't make any decision, it actually might be more counterintuitive and actually more damaging than a quick failed or a quick wrong answer. This is what Jeff Bezos was saying. He was saying, sometimes just choosing an answer quickly is actually that ends up being wrong is a better answer than the answer that you spend so much time on, because you could have learned and you could have improved. And isn't this what life is? It's a lot of it is just improving. Like if I read these biographies, if I talk to everyone's gone through so many hundreds of failures. It's just a natural process of everything. So I gotta remind myself of that. And the monologue podcast, I uploaded a Pavel Durov episode, and he was also very fascinating. I learned a lot from him. I guess he, some aspects of him, I guess the how he did things were a little bit less. I couldn't take as much in because his brother was just such a genius in terms of his brother was a 3 times world championship in mathematics, from correct, and also was a world champion in informatics and coding, and has a double PhD. I think that is such an intense specificity of intelligence in like this field that is so helpful, and it's his brother, right? But I guess the one thing you can learn is to have really good talent around you is so helpful. And Pavel's just way of living like a digital nomad and going around the world and having boldness to live up to what he believes against the Russian government when they were trying to ask for his information for Ukrainian protesters. Like, I think Ukrainian around like 10, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I think. Time goes by so fast. But it's very inspiring. It's like maybe I should live with boldness as well. And also taking care of his health. Although initially when he was building, he wasn't. So maybe I shouldn't as well. But afterwards, you can. Also, his constant insistence on not drinking. And this example is very helpful. His father was a Roman literature professor at the second most prestigious university in Russia. And based on what his father knows, the Spartans of the past, the Spartans were outnumbered by their slaves by 10 to 1, and the slaves would drink. The slaves would be forced to drink like 3 glasses of wine or some kind of alcoholic drink, and that was a way for the Spartans to subdue them, because when you're drunk, you're physically weaker, you're not smart enough, you're more maybe you could say timid or whatever, but it was so much easier to control. And I wonder if that's the same thing, if this hyper marketing and hyper just how everyone is drinking, how everything is sort of natural process of going out when you're now I can legally drink, so I can. It's just to drink. It's a natural thing to do, and how maybe that was intentional. I don't know. A lot of these entrepreneurs seem to also drink, so I'm not exactly sure. But Charlie didn't drink. Masos doesn't try to drink. Sometimes he does he wants to, or the person really insists on, but tries to avoid. And he also did that to his. He also promised that to his father. So yeah, I don't know. Pavel was just it's still crazy though. $15 billion, and only him and his brother being co-founders, and having 30 employees. That also reminds me, I want to make the most smallest company for how much changes we can make in the world, because I think cost cutting is really important. I was listening to Founders Pod. I've been really inspired by them, but they're I think I listened to over 50 or 100 episodes, and the same thing always comes is just they are cost cutters. The greatest founders are always cost cutters. Otherwise, this is my thesis. What I learned is there's always going to be hard times, like just like the business cycle. There's always going to be a depression, but no one's going to expect it because things are going super nice. So who would know, right? But then the people who are cost cutters have money, so then they can survive it, and the cost cutters have more money to take advantage of it, and the cost cutters have more money to invest back into their company, and also it sets the correct standard, because once you don't control your costs, then it might just exponentially get higher, and I can kind of see it with my own self. You know, my father's a business owner. My father um, yelled at me for not checking on one of my software payments, so I paid a month even though I wasn't using it, and I was like, oh, that's like $10 gone. I mean, I asked for refunds. I think I got a refund, but still, I need to measure my costs and even those specific things. Like the richest woman in like 1960s, 50s, or whatever, when you couldn't even vote as a woman, I think she was rich enough where she financed the entire, I think the city of New York, which I don't understand what that actually means, but anyway, she was the richest woman, and I think the richest person in New York, and she would not afford like the carriages or some kind of car that was really nice that the other people used. She didn't use that. She just rode the public train, and she would carry along a bag full of hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is so much money at that time. And she would meet, and then one of her guests would be like, "Why are you riding the metro? Why are you carrying it? Why don't you use a private chauffeur, a private taxi of the path taxi?" Um, and she was like, I'm not rich enough. Not rich enough to do so." And maybe that's too extreme, but also I think I like that. Like why this the money you have is already enough to do things. Why spend more? Like luxury, the luxury we have in this current life would be is like the life we already have is a luxury of the past. I think we should be happy enough for that. No. So I was thinking, what however money I generate, um, if I actually believe that I'm not doing this for money, and of course a part of it I'm doing just for the sake of power and money, greed, or I think more is just pride in myself, my wanting of just not power, but influence, and also just I guess others' opinions also matters to an extent, perhaps. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly why I do things. Part of it I say is to help people, and I think it's part of it. But um, anyhow, what was I saying? Um, I'm so sleepy. But it's the money I generate. I will not. I will maybe spend $200,000 or $300,000 a year for myself, but everything in excess of that, even if I'm a billionaire, uh, will not be really spent towards myself. I mean, I'll try to reinvest into the business, but all the money left will just be used to just build schools, help kids out. Like that makes me feel really good. It's not like most entrepreneurs who still have a lot of money left for other things. And I think if I buy a really expensive car, I'll probably buy the most safest car in the world. But if I buy the most expensive car, I'm just gonna look at it like a $5 million Bugatti. I'm just gonna be like, how many kids could I have like saved their lives with this money? Like, what the fuck is the purpose? I mean, I can't curse. I don't know if the YouTube's gonna block me for this, but like, what's the point of this? It's just a car. Just I'm gonna enjoy with this, but I don't think I would be as happy having this as helping maybe like 1,000 kids basically live their entire lives. maybe even send them to college. Um, so yeah, something I've been thinking about. Um, but going back to the podcast, I'm really excited to see what'll happen in like the next 10 years. Looking back, because I'm really curious how it'll go. It feels dumb because it hasn't been done before in a sense. Because I also feel like I'm just lazy and I'm not doing like the actual entrepreneur. I'm just learning about entrepreneurship. I'm not actually doing it. And maybe that's true, but also I think making content and creating it and marketing is, in a sense, an entrepreneurial pathway, and I can also generate money from this. Just take care of myself, and that's my focus for the next 2 3 years. Um, I will think more about that, or I might change during the process. But I'll go to America, and I'm thinking and just studying physics and biology because I think those will be really helpful for understanding the companies I want to build in the future. I might finish early, I might drop out or whatever, but at least understanding more is really helpful. And I really enjoy physics, and also Elon really recommends it as a really good way of learning how to think. So if Elon says, I think I gotta learn it. Um, but yeah, the podcast is gonna be once a week, and billionaires. I want to get my goal this year is to get the CEO of Coupang on our podcast. He's like a billionaire in Korea, and he's I think the only really self-made person in like the top 5 or top 10 richest in Korea, which is super inspiring. Um, yeah, just learn from him. There's a guy. So unless they built a $1 billion company, I'm trying to limit myself. Um, but yeah, so interview a couple. Next year, I'm gonna be really excited. Next year, I think this year I can also get Andrew Wilkinson, who wrote a best-selling book, and he built a design agency, and now he has a holding company of tech companies, sort of like Berkshire Hathaway's, but for tech. And it's really inspiring. I was reading his book, and he sort of is like me in the sense that he always saw the people working in coffee shops and just drinking like 2 cups of coffee every day and just working their entire day and just building things, and they were freelancers, and I also aspired that life, and he started a business, but that's part of the reason why I also want to, and I did, because I like that freedom and just working in coffee shops. So I want to interview him. I want to interview not really I want to, I will. I can't imagine not having him because people have clearly, and it, I think if you have the will, and if you can think of it, I think you can do it if you just put in enough effort. If you try hard enough, if you have enough boldness. As long as I don't say something really stupid. And even if you say something stupid, mind you, Massa was saying to one of his one of his deals, according to the biography, I'm not sure how, I forgot how he exactly said it, but along the sentences of his sales, the sales proposition he had is just, let's marry, just straight up into a guy's face as Massa himself, and this is Japan, right? So, um, the guy at the other side, the guy was like, what? But later on, the guy Massa was closing told him when he was like, okay, I agree with this negotiation, this deal. I was like, okay, we're married. It's just funny, but even if you say something as, I guess, stupid as that, it might just end up being funny. In terms of reaching out to the CEO of Coupang. I'm not sure what I'm saying makes sense. I think it kind of doesn't, but it is what it is, right? Whoever's watching, unless you're like I guess my 3 good friends, and I don't really care what you tell me. I think at least I have to remind myself to not really care, because I'm just thinking if I die, you wouldn't really care. Doesn't mean I don't care about you though, but in all honesty, even if you care about me, if I die, you might come to the funeral, but you're gonna forget about me afterwards. You're gonna maybe be reminded of me a couple of times, but you're never gonna shed a tear. I wasn't even worth a tear of water, in a sense. So I think that's been helpful. I just think about that. Like, do people's opinions really matter? Not really, unless the people really care about you, which is a dime in a dozen. But yeah, but the podcast, coming back to it. So my mind is off, man. My mind's off. Talking is so hard. It's so hard. Wow. It's so hard. I'm not sure if I'm not made for this or if I don't know, it's like I think of something and I'm like, don't think about it, but my mind feels like it's challenging myself. So I just go ahead and just say out loud whatever I was thinking about. I'm thinking about, I'm thinking to myself, like, hey, Ellen, just don't think. Or what if you freeze up and don't say anything? Like, but don't you think that'll be kind of, like, I don't know why, but I'm just like, okay, it's a challenge. Let me do it. So I just don't. Which is very odd, but gotta stop because, um, yeah. But then I want to get Warren Buffett, hopefully before he dies. I think I can do that maybe. Warren Buffett would be challenging, but I think I can. Um, I didn't really think about it. I just thought about it, but I think if you believe, I think you have a good chance. And Charlie Munger was our founders, so I don't think it's a long shot to say it. And as long as we grow quick enough and my content gets better, then it is possible. There's also, I want to get Yuval Srinard. I think I can get him in maybe 3 years. The runner, the man who runs the Norwegian foreign national bank, or what do you call it? But basically the aggregate of a lot of the savings, a lot of the money that the government has, and they invested, and it's been very profitable. It's the biggest in the world. Sovereign Wealth Fund. It's the biggest in the world. So there's a lot to learn, and he has his own podcast. So I'd be interested in that. But then in terms of biographies and the stories I want to write, I want to go over like figures like Master or Pavel who are just like kind of like just out of the ordinary, just like such unique people. Like they're not like Rockefeller, Carnegie, or those, or Henry Ford. You kind of get the same vibe from them. They're like, oh, like they're tycoons, entrepreneurs, very hardworking. They're very that they might be cruel or they might be very harsh, and they're very but yeah, you get the same idea. But these people are quite different. I'm going to Lee Kuan Yew. I got Lee Kuan Yew's biography, Leonardo da Vinci, Tim Cook. Actually, I'm very fascinated by Tim Cook, Theodore Roosevelt, Benjamin Franklin, and then this is actually done by founders, but is Chung Ji-young, which is the founder of Hyundai. But luckily, I know Korean. There is an autobiography of Samsung 7. Reading that for my Korean class, so I'm going to do that for my for podcast as well, and do that for probably Admiral Yi Shin and King Sejong perhaps, and then I might maybe get the podcast of the founder of the biggest law firm in Korea. That would be pretty interesting, Kim In Chung, or maybe just do if he does I don't think he has a biography, but research and make a simple biography if there's anything to work on with him. I think there's no other biographies at the moment. I'm gonna probably buy more physical ones. I think physical books are better, but also I don't want to waste money, so we will have to see. Kindle kind of does the job, but actually reading the Chung Ji-young book was amazing. It's really inspiring. Anyone who's listening up to this point, really, really great book. He kind of inspired me into what an entrepreneur can do. He's seen really favorably by Korean people. I asked all the old Korean TAs in our school, and they all look super favorable, and taxi drivers, so I think that's credible sources enough how good he was and how favorably he's looked upon. Not like, I guess, the tycoons in America, where I think a lot of people, or 50-50, I'm not exactly sure, but at least from what I heard, wouldn't look as favorably on. Given that I've heard people don't look, there's some people who say George Washington was a slave owner, so he's a bad person. I'm like, huh. Also, I think a little dramatized maybe, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'll see. I'll go to America, and we will have to see. Hopefully, I don't die. If I don't get killed, hopefully I continue. That's my only worry. I just don't die. Very exciting times. A lot of things. AI is developing rapidly, and I think given what I've lived through and what I've had experience with, I think my 3D printing abilities might come in handy since I developed at the 5th grade. My coding abilities, my fascination for physics, my fascination for people and community building. I think that'll be a very important part. As the other thesis I'm thinking about is, as technology has been evolving exponentially, talent has become so much more important. Steve Jobs put that as his highest important. He said his favorite product was not the Apple iPhone or whatever. It was the team he had built, and he always wants A players because A players want to work with other A players, and the A players might do 200 times more. What A players can do might end up with like 200 times more output than a B player or C player can do, especially in technology or maybe just even in content or whatever field where if you're good at YouTube, to if you're mediocre, the good one may be able to get millions, the decent one may be able to get 10,000, and that's a huge difference, and you get paid differently. Like that, only the top 0.001% of people or companies in any industries are the ones that make most of the money, or at least to what I understand. And as such, talent is getting more important. I think AI will make it so people who are not good enough, who don't understand at a deep enough level, who can't learn fast enough, they are no longer important. They can be replaced. And it's sad, and maybe it's a wake up call, or maybe there's going to be more entrepreneurs. But nonetheless, there's less of a need. So the people I hire, it's going to be more important. If they can use it really well, that might be a huge difference for whatever company I make. Like I'm imagining, I always wanted to build also a space mining company. I think this space mining company. I want to build a space mining company, and I want to use AI to help. What do you say? Help create designs, help do some help create so much ideas that we can test out with, help with the manufacturing of it. Use 3D printing, maybe and I want to use physics, not physics. I want to use AI to help create ideas and create a bunch of ideas to continue to iterate. And if there's issues, we present and it can help us. But I think if there's someone who's really good at using that, he can use AI in all fields. So there's going to be different agents deployed. So at different aspects, there's going to be like they can maybe figure out a system where the employees have certain things that they add as an input, and based on that, the AI gathers that data, and there's different agents, and they all tell that to a bigger agent, and that agent gets all that data, and it's like, okay, based on what everyone's been saying, this might work best, and then they might think of creating new sensors for sensing different things. That also helps with data collection. I don't know. I guess that's more vague. For the AI therapist or AI teacher, it's very easy. Just who has the best AI, who's the most customized, and that's very important on the talent. And I think if I build my podcast and I also host a lot of dinners, like I'm gonna host a lot of dinners in a French restaurant near our house. I might drink wine. I'm not sure, but I think I can meet a lot of people. I'm gonna also go to a lot of tech events, meet a lot of the A players, and maybe I think this podcast may be a way for me to sort of like, if it's big enough, I think a lot of people are gonna watch it, and if it's interesting enough, and if people listen to it long enough, there's gonna be people who are value aligned with what I want to achieve in my life. Which, as time goes by, it'll be more clear. So I'm gonna have more people who want to. Then those people, if I offer them to work, I think they're gonna be more interested. Just like how a lot of people want to work for Mr. Beast or Alex Ramosi, and I think I can do that, and I think that might be helpful. And also just the ability to talk with people and tell stories, I think is very interesting. Like I always enjoy the person who can tell me interesting stories, and I've been practicing that all the time with my friends. And whenever I have a really interesting story, people do listen. If it's not, people don't listen and they just go away. So you can definitely tell. But I've been working on that, and a part of it is this that I'm working on. And I realize a lot of things to work on, but that is life, right? You just learn and learn. And anyhow, this is Alan. This is 49 minutes. It's actually crazy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.